Hello, I'm Betty Hollister, Public Information Manager with the Regional Flood Control District, and welcome to another edition of the Flood Channel. Building blocks are a staple in every kid's toy box. It's rewarding to work hard and build something new. The Flood Control District is also working hard to build new projects to minimize the risk of flooding all across Clark County. Our master plan is the foundation to our building block approach. And while we have a lot of building blocks in place, we still have a long way to go to complete our mission. So let's take a look at what's coming up on today's show.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ann Mokopathai from one of our newest construction projects over on the east side of the valley. Coming up while this project completes another part of our master plan. Plus a look at how you can help the district protect your home and the environment the next time it rains, and why you might need to purchase flood insurance.
All that and our flood facts coming up on this edition of the Flood Channel. Welcome back to the Flood Channel. One of our building blocks is obviously our construction program. So let's go to Carrie Ann for an update on this story.
Thanks, Betty. Here at the Flamingo Wash, we're working hard to build another flood control channel. And when it's finished, this wash will carry floodwater for more than 200 square miles. Let's get the details of this $6 million project.
Well, this is the Flamingo Wash project. It extends from Eastern to Desert Inn. It's about 4,800 linear feet long. It'll convey about 6,600 cubic feet per second of water. It's part of the Flamingo Wash system, which begins at the western part of the valley. It flows all the way through Las Vegas to the eastern part of the valley, eventually dumping into Las Vegas Wash, which then drains into Lake Mead.
The Flamingo Wash is one of the major channels throughout the valley. It basically catches drainage from the west side of the valley to the Las Vegas Wash. And after the construction of this channel, it will protect the residential owners as well as business owners throughout this area by collecting all of the stormwater and controlling it inside the channel walls instead of having a possibility of it washing out the sides of the channels onto their property.
As this channel passes Eastern Avenue, it curves through business areas and apartments and houses. There's a lot of residential right up close to the channel that need to be protected. They're very close to the existing wash, so we chose to concrete line this wash. This project is being done in conjunction with the county, who is using Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act money to build a trail alongside the channel. So one of the things we did with this project to try to make it more aesthetically pleasing, make it look better, was to color the concrete in the walls. We're doing that by adding a color mixture to the concrete at the batch plant, and it's being poured into the wall and placed into the wall as they construct it.
This is one of the first projects that the district has done with color additive in the walls, and it'll make the channel, once it's completed, more aesthetically pleasing to the area residents.
While all of our flood control projects are inherently risky because we're building them in areas that flood. I mean, we wouldn't be building the project if we didn't have flood flows going through the area. And so each contractor has to take on that risk, and there's certain things they can do depending on what time of year it is. If it's in flash flood season during the summer months or in the winter months, there's certain things they can do to try to protect their work while it's being constructed and make sure that they don't have any flood damage. Of course, on a wash such as this, the Flamingo Wash has such a broad basin draining to it. It's 200 square mile watershed draining to this reach of channel. Any storm within that watershed can drain flow and funnel flow into this wash, and so they got to deal with those flows while they're constructing. The project is really at risk during construction because it's not all done. It's not a monolithic, large structure acting as one facility. One thing we do as part of the design to try to aid the contractor in protecting their work is we install what we would call cutoff walls, and these are vertical walls that we construct at the upstream end of the slab where where they stop construction, to try to keep that slab from being undermined during a flood flow. So once a slab gets undermined from the flow, that's it. They're going to have to pull it out and replace it, and so the cutoff walls help them avoid that issue.
The main challenges we've had so far is dealing with Mother Nature. Over the last couple months, we've had several flood events, and every time after a storm, there's usually anywhere from 1 to 3 feet of water flowing down the channel. So the contractor is not able to get in to start any of his work for 1 to 2 days after that, once the channel dries up.
This project is one of 11 projects that we currently have under construction, totaling about $80 million worth of work. We also have 4 more projects that have already advertised, the bids have been opened, and we're getting ready to start construction on those. We're going through the pre-construction meetings and getting the award process done. We also have 2 additional projects that are being advertised as we speak. We're asking contractors to place bids in on those projects for construction. And then we have another 5 projects on top of that that are getting ready to approach that bidding phase. That's a total of about 22 projects, totaling about $170 million, which is quite a few projects. We're really busy right now at the Regional Flood Control District trying to get projects under construction and get them out in the community, protecting the public.
Well, when we talk about building blocks, the Regional Flood Control District is a great example of a public agency that was started over 25 years ago with a set mission, and that was to build the facilities needed to protect people and property. And we have been able to very slowly and in a deliberate way build out the facilities needed in this valley. We are fortunate, very fortunate, last June to take advantage of the Build America Bond program, where we were able to take $150 million in bonding capacity and accelerate our program a little bit. So that $150 million of Build America bonds and the 1/4-cent sales tax pay-as-you-go program with all our member agencies put us in a position today where we have now started 11 projects are under construction, 4 more out to bid in the next month. Overall, in a year's period, we'll have close to 30 projects under construction in the valley with a total value of close to $250 million. And that's a great example, again, how we have been patient, taken advantage of the opportunities when they present itself. And the good news, 2,000 jobs have been created within the last year and over the next few months as part of this overall capital program. We have to date built 82 detention basins, 550 miles of storm drains, improved channels, of which 130 miles are still natural washers that we use as part of the overall facilities. And that's just to date. We've accomplished a great deal, but we still have so much more to do. We also talk about the future, and we know that as successful as we have been, we have to always look to the future. Last year, we had the 8th driest year on record, and people look around and say, what do we need a flood control district for? And yet, in 2010, we've started off at a record pace. So we can't build our facilities where we think it's going to rain. We can't rely on Mother Nature and the historical rainfalls. We have to stay true to our mission. And again, the building blocks slowly, patiently continue to move out over the next 25 years with the primary function of protecting lives and property.
This project completes the final segment of a 4-mile stretch of the Flamingo Wash from Maryland Parkway to I-515. It's another building block in the district's mission to protect you, your home, and local businesses from potentially dangerous floodwater. Betty?
Thanks, Carrie Ann. And we'll be back with more on the Flood Channel right after this.
Our deserts are for all of us to enjoy. Take pride in America. This is your land, so lend a hand. To learn more, visit takepride.gov.
For local volunteer opportunities, go to getoutdoorsnevada.org, a program sponsored by the Southern Nevada Agency Partnership and UNLV.
I want to show you some pictures your parents probably wouldn't want you to see. Pictures of parents making big mistakes. Here's someone's dad doing something foolish. He's actually trying to drive through a flooded street. Here's another. And another. Every summer we get flash floods, and every summer the same thing happens. And hey, if all this water can do this to a car, imagine what it'd do to a kid. Look, don't be foolish. Flash floods kill. Tell your parents.
A reminder from the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
I'm Gail Fraser, the General Manager of the Clark County Regional Flood Control District, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
Is floodwater treated or untreated when it reaches Lake Mead?
Floodwater is untreated when it reaches Lake Mead. It doesn't go through any kind of treatment plant like sanitary sewers do. That's why it's important that we all do our part to protect the environment and keep pollutants out of our storm drain system.
The recent rain we had was certainly a welcome sight, but with it came some unwelcome garbage. Debris and litter washed off lawns and streets. It collected in our drop inlets while the water runs off the street and down into underground storm drains. Carrie Ann explains why trash is a real problem.
There's thousands of drop inlets all around Clark County. Their job is to collect storm water and get it into underground storm drains. They're an important part of our flood control network.
Well, when we design these inlets, we design them to clog to a certain degree, but sometimes they can clog completely. And if they do that, then that water is going to go farther downstream, overwhelm the next inlet, or clog it even further. So if the inlets are clogged up, they're not going to do their job. So we want people to keep trash off the ground in the first place, and if they see a clogged inlet, to give us a call. The mission of the Flood Control District is multifaceted. We have many building blocks to what we're trying to accomplish. One of them is flood control, the other is protecting the environment. Our flood control system carries pollutants, and so it's part of our mission to keep those pollutants out of our storm drain system, because at the end of the line is the environment, it's Lake Mead, Las Vegas Wash, where we get our drinking water.
A lot of debris comes from vehicles as they're driving along. Pickup trucks have it in the back of their trucks. It blows off of lots that are unmaintained. Trash just comes from trash trucks or vehicles that are just not covered and things like that. They get into the storm drains and they clog the storm drains up. We try to keep the drop inlets clean. If there is a storm, the water can flow into those freely without being clogged up. If they do get clogged up, we don't want to have any of that stuff making it out to Lake Mead. The silts and things like that, we are mandated to keep those clean so the water can pass through freely.
Trash, paper and cups and bottles are considered a pollutant, and they're bad for the environment. If they wash all the way down to Las Vegas Wash and into Lake Mead, they become a problem for the environment and the animals and plants that live there. The best thing you can do with your household waste is get it to a recycling center, paints and solvents and cleaners and things like that they're expired and you're not going to use them. Get them out of your house and get them to a recycling center. Don't dump them down the drain. To keep these pollutants out of the environment in the first place is really, really important.
The reason we sweep the roads in the Las Vegas Valley is to keep the trash from accumulating in the areas that we maintain. The stuff that's left in the gutter lines and things like that, it can wash into the drop inlets and plug them up for when a storm comes. The water cannot get into the drop inlets to make its way to Lake Mead. We have two types of sweepers. There's regenerative air, that's a vacuum style sweeper, and we also have what's called a mechanical sweeper. It doesn't have a vacuum on it, it just picks up debris manually. The whole fleet throughout a year period could get up to 23,000 cubic yards of material, which averages out to one football field 45 feet high of debris. We try to make the Las Vegas Valley as clean as we can, or keep it as clean as we possibly can. When the tourists come to town, we like them to see a clean environment when we're taking care of it. We don't want them to see trash in the roadway and things like that when they travel around. We like to have our city clean.
This is what we've been telling you about clogged storm drains. Trash like this can cause inlets to back up. And then these inlets get blocked with trash, water can't leave the street and flooding will occur. And if this trash makes its way to Lake Mead, it'll pollute the environment. So if you see a clogged storm drain, report it with the Regional Flood Control District.
There's basically three beliefs or norms that people who litter share. The research has shown pretty consistently. One is that they believe that it's not their land. They don't feel ownership of where they're trashing, where they're littering. The other is that they believe somebody else is going to clean it up so that they can leave, they can litter and somebody else will come back and pick it up for them. And the third is where their trash is already present. So you kind of have this notion of like it's an attractive nuisance. The Don't Trash Nevada campaign is funded by the 4 federal agencies through money that came from the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. And it's the messaging campaign for the agencies and to get the word out, to increase public awareness of the problem of litter and desert dumping and the impacts that it has. And the reason we need to stop the litter and desert dumping is because it's really detrimental to the environment and to public safety as well. You know, so if you're trashing, eventually it will end up in the water system, and that's the water that we drink. It goes untreated into Lake Mead, and it's also bad for wildlife. What you find is that litter attracts other forms of wildlife. So, for example, it really attracts ravens, and ravens are one of the biggest predators of desert tortoise hatchlings. So if you have a littered area, those hatchlings are having a hard, it's hard for them to survive in the first place, and then it's even harder because you've got ravens that maybe wouldn't have been there had there not been trash. I've spent my whole career working to help people form connections with our public lands. You know, when I was growing up, my dad would always bend over and pick up trash, and when I was younger, I was always annoyed by that. But now I teach that to my kids, that even though it's not my trash, I'm going to help clean up because it's everybody's responsibility. It's for the future. I mean, it's like any preservation effort. You know, you want to leave this place in a sustainable way so that our children can enjoy it just as much as we have. These places are important to us. They're important to our society as a whole. And so if we work together, that to me, being in a position to help people understand the importance of being stewards, if you step up and become part of the solution, our world will be better, and we'll be healthier, and we'll have this sustainable future for our children.
Through outreach projects like the Don't Trash Nevada campaign, along with our local version, Don't Trash Clark County, we're getting the word out about putting trash where it belongs. Betty?
Thanks, Carrie Ann. And we'll be back with more on the Flood Channel right after this.
Seriously, the ref botched that call. He ruined the game.
I know, baby.
Babe, it's my bonus check. You know what this means.
I do know what this means. Oh my God, new wardrobe.
Oh, come on, you know. We can buy flood insurance. Yes!
In Clark County, floods can strike at any time, and not just in flood zones. Flooding can cost thousands of dollars in damage, destroying your home and its contents. Do you have flood insurance?
At a time when Southern Nevada needs to be water smart, did you know taking your car to a car wash saves not only gallons of water, but also traps all that dirt and other nasty pollutants? Washing your car in the driveway allows grease, soap, and oil to flow down the street into storm drains and onto Lake Mead, our primary source for drinking water. Do your part, wash smart, a clean car and a cleaner environment. This message brought to you by the Stormwater Quality Management Committee, a program of the Regional Flood Control District.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Hi, my name's Hunter, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, is responsible for mapping flood hazards all across the United States. In our area, most of those maps were done about 20 years ago. So as part of our construction program, we're constantly restudying areas to show reductions in flood zones. But in some cases, we identify new flood hazards. Carrie Ann explains why flood insurance is now going to be required for some homes adjacent to the Desert Rose Golf Course.
The Las Vegas Wash usually just meanders through this golf course, but a recent winter storm showed these homeowners that a lot of water can flow through here. We recently restudied this section of the wash, and FEMA agrees this area should be in a flood zone. By summer 2011, some homeowners here will be required to carry flood insurance, but we believe the sooner the better. News 3's Steve Krupe recently covered a storm this past January. Let's take a look.
Most of today's rain is not soaking into the ground, it's running off into a complex network of storm drains and flood channels. This is perhaps the most dramatic of them all, the Flamingo Wash. 2 days ago, there was almost nothing flowing here. Now, tonight, it's a powerful river of runoff. This section of the Flamingo Wash actually cuts right through the middle of what is normally a golf course. That's the 10th fairway out here at the Desert Rose Golf Course, but right now it's serving as a major component of the Las Vegas flood system. And right now, the water is coming dangerously close to several backyards out here. We're standing in your backyard, and look at that. I mean, the water is right up to the edge.
Yeah, and like you see, it's also, there's a lot of debris, and you know, my wife is always wondering, what if it goes over? And my neighbor was just mentioning that a few years ago it did go over, and it was just a completely mess.
For the most part, though, the flood control system is doing its job and handling a huge amount of water. Steve Krupe, News 3.
If you live in a flood zone, you have to purchase flood insurance. But one big misconception is that if you're not in a flood zone, you'll never be flooded. That's not the case. So let's find out more.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency publishes flood hazard maps. If you're in one of these flood hazard zones, if your home is, you have to buy flood insurance. We have been maintaining these maps or requesting changes to the maps for many years, since 1992, to go with our flood control projects, to show the reduction in flood hazard that occurs because of our flood control projects being built. Sometimes we have to restudy areas when we think there's a bigger risk than what FEMA originally estimated. Now, FEMA did their studies initially for the communities back in the late 70s. If you think about the late 70s, there weren't even cell phones back then. Technology has changed, and how we analyze these flood hazards has also changed. We have a lot more computing capacity now, and we can look at many different scenarios as we see them actually occur in nature. We can say, boy, if that happened here, this flood hazard might be worse than what's shown on this map. Another thing we're doing with the current remapping effort is, since Hurricane Katrina, a lot of attention has been drawn nationally to the protection provided by levees and how well those are maintained and how much we can count on them. We have a few levees in Clark County, and FEMA has asked us to give them all of the engineering data to say, yes, they are providing the amount of protection that they're getting credit for on the flood maps.
Well, back in 1999 when the 100-year flood came, this was really scary area.